Hello, biology students. Let's start our new topic, ecology with learning food chains and webs. Let's begin. So we're going to start by learning two new words, biotic and abiotic. The word biotic has that same sound as the word biology, meaning living thing, and abiotic has the prefix a for not. That prefix always, at the beginning, a, will always kind of make whatever comes next non-existent. So biotic, an A in front of it, not biotic, non-living. So now let's practice these two words and try to categorize and get examples for our guided notes. So we have a cat, we have plants, we have wind and waves, and we have sunlight. So which of these things are biotic and which of these things are abiotic? What do you think? So a cat is biotic, plants are biotic, wind is abiotic, and sunlight is abiotic. So now we're going to add those as examples next to our terms so we can make sure we can practice these later. Make sure you get down a couple examples. I'm going to move on. If you need a pause, make sure you pause. Remember, vocab words are great things to highlight in our notes so you can come back to them. Biotic and abiotic are brand new things that you need to learn. I might highlight them. Let's now practice labeling the parts of a food chain. So in a food chain, we have arrows, and the arrow direction matters. So here we have the arrow going from the plant to the snail, and the snail to the bird. Well, what does this direction mean? Well, it means arrows are always going to point to the direction of the consumer's mouth. All right? The snail is eating the plant, meaning this arrow is going into the snail's mouth. This bird is eating the snail, meaning the arrow is pointing into the bird's mouth. It needs to point into the mouth of whatever's doing the eating. It would be a very scary world if snails ate birds. Those are some scary snails. Now let's learn some terms that are about what we just talked about. Now, really what's interesting to remember is a plant makes its own food. We know that it does this through photosynthesis, so we call it a producer. This is a brand new vocab word. I would make sure you highlight it in your notes. Now, we just kind of hinted that these things are eaters. They eat to get their energy, so we call them a consumer, both the snail and the bird. Now, all this is because of the sun, right? A bird can't use the sun's energy to make its own food, but a plant can, which is why it's the producer. So even though we don't always show it, the sun is involved in a food chain or web. Now, how do these things get their energy? Well, when we're talking about whether they're using the sun's energy, we have a couple other vocab words which mean the same thing as these two new words, producer and consumer. They're synonyms. So we're going to use them interchangeably. Producer is the same thing as a autotroph. Autotroph meaning makes its own food. Producer and autotroph are synonyms, mean the same thing. Consumer is the same thing as a heterotroph. Heterotroph meaning it gets its food from something else. All right? Same thing here. The bird is also considered a heterotroph because it's a consumer. So what words mean the same thing? Consumer and heterotroph? Producer and autotroph. And I promised you will practice those in class. Last but not least, this was a food chain. So what's a food web? A food web is way more complicated. This is a food web, and it's going to show many chains put together. All right, we'll practice that in class as well. Wonderful job, guys. See you next time.